Hello and welcome to the Ori Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Foster. This week we're lucky to have Lavakumar Karyampudi with us. He's the Senior Director of Cell Therapies at Moffitt Cancer Center. Welcome, Kumar.
Hi, Jason. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. This is exciting. I'm looking forward to have a great discussion with you.
Well, it's great to have you on. And as everyone in cell and gene therapy will know, Moffitt is one of the leading centers for both research and clinical delivery to patients and treatment of cancer with cell therapies. So it's great to have one of the experts with us today who can help decipher the current trends in cell therapy. And I think the theme we're going to try and concentrate on today, although I tend to wander off. So if I wander off on a topic, you got to pull me back. But we're going to try and focus on how kind of infrastructure and innovation are really shaping kind of academic cell and gene therapy programs. I think the role of academic centers has really changed over the last couple of years. And people like yourself are bringing expertise on manufacturing and translation and really bringing new therapies further along in the development. So I'm excited to hear about kind of how you guys are thinking about it and the role that Moffitt sees itself playing over the next decades. If we can, I'd like to get started just with a quick view of your background. You've obviously worked in a lot of different areas in cell therapy, translational science, preclinical development, manufacturing. It'd be great to hear just a little bit more about your background and how you got to where you are at Moffitt.
In my career, I wore multiple hats for sure. I'm originally from India, and I came to US for my PhD. My PhD was in immunology, focused on cancer immunotherapy. This was back in early 2000s. Um,
That was prescient.
yeah. So my PhD thesis was recombinant fusion protein as a vaccine model against B cell lymphoma.
Mm.
Um, so following my PhD, I did my postdoc at Mayo Clinic. So again, my PhD thesis was in preclinical models. So then I went into Mayo Clinic for my postdoc. During my postdoc, I worked quite a bit in preclinical models, focused on peptide vaccines and combination therapy using peptide vaccine in combination with checkpoint inhibitors. This is around the time when CTLA4 was approved. So we were trying different combinations with the peptide vaccine that I was testing in preclinical models, starting with anti-CTLA4 and then anti-PD1, anti-PDL1. So there are different combinations that I used with peptide vaccines in preclinical models. At the same time, at Mayo Clinic, I was trained as a translational scientist. That's when I got exposed to translational science piece of research, and also I got involved in cell therapy trials. I started working on dendritic cell vaccines, T cell vaccines, focused on breast cancer. So I spent quite a bit of time at my clinic working on in preclinical as well as translational science, and then I worked on IND submissions related to the dendritic cell vaccine and T cell vaccines. So following my work at my clinic, and I worked through ranks at my clinic. I started as a postdoc and
Hmm.
worked until the level of senior scientist. After my clinic, I went into biotech. My first job in biotech was in a company which is an early stage company that was located in Iowa. And I worked on IDO inhibitor program as well as a
Hmm.
tumor cell vaccine program in that biotech company. Again, because it's a startup, small biotech company, I wore multiple hats.
Hmm.
I did work in preclinical area of IDO inhibitor as well as tumor cell vaccine, as well as translational science, and process development area of the tumor cell vaccine. Also, I was working in a business development piece because I was part of such an evaluation team. So after a few years in that startup biotech, I moved into a company called Iovance Biotherapeutics.
Hmm.
At Iovance, I worked on it, the TIL program, obviously.
Hmm.
I did work in a process development area of the Gen 1 process, Then it became Gen 2 process, which is what the process right now that's approved for their product, that's Amtagvi.
Mm-hmm.
So at the same time, at Iovance Biotherapeutics, while I was working on the process development area, in the process development area, I also started the translational science group. In fact, I was the N1 employee in the translational science group at
Mm-hmm.
Iovance Biotherapeutics, I spent almost 4 years at Iovance. I was 25th employee at Iovance, and then when the company grew, it grew rapidly, as we all know.
Yes.
After spending 3.5 years at Iovance Biotherapeutics, I went into a startup biotech company in San Diego, worked on CAR and K program. Again, worked in the process development area, established their process development program piece for their program, helped with IND submission, started the translational program at that particular company, was there for almost 2 years. Then I went into a company called Maxite, where I worked on mRNA CAR program.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see, there is a theme in my career which happened unknowingly. I worked in different cell therapy programs,
Mm-hmm.
and I was running two different tracks in parallel. I was doing process development as well as translational science.
Mm.
Um, After Maxite, I came to Moffitt Cancer Center to lead the group that I am leading right now. It's a cell therapy and gene engineering group
Mm-hmm.
that supports CGMP manufacturing of both cellular products and viral vector products to support phase one, phase two trials. And I've been here at Moffitt Cancer Center for 4 years. So that's my journey in a nutshell.
Well, great. We're very lucky to have someone with your breadth of experience join us, but not only from the therapeutics development side, also from the technology side. I'd forgotten you had been at Maxite. As you might have seen, we announced a partnership with Maxite a couple
Yeah,
weeks ago.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're working with lots of the other best of breed technology providers to just make it easier, make the workflows easier, and integrate where we can, so that people like yourselves can use our respective technologies in an easier way. But having that experience both on the development side, on the technology side, and now also on the AMC side is great to bring to this conversation. And I want to come back to translational science in cell therapy and process development, because I have a question for you on that. But I wanted to start out really just kind of under better understanding your role at Moffitt. I think we know that academic institutions tend to juggle or to wear a lot of hats. They do internal development with PIs who have interesting scientific ideas. They often are involved in clinical trials, also, and then increasingly are becoming involved in manufacturing. So I wanted to understand how organizations like Moffitt balance all those sometimes competing priorities, and why we're seeing more academic centers. As you know, we've been partnered with Jason Bach's team down at MD Anderson CTMC for a while, and I've had Isabel Riviere on here when she was still at MSK, and other leaders in this space. We just had Julie Alexson on from Mayo, and more we see academic centers getting into manufacturing and playing more of what a role maybe that used to be played by CDMOs, or there's this kind of differentiation happening. So I'd love to kind of get your view on how does Moffitt balance all those priorities, and also why do we see more and more academic centers getting into manufacturing?
I'll start with my role at Moffitt Cancer Center, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk a little bit about the facility and how it fits into the Moffitt ecosystem. And also that will tag into the your question, like
Mm-hmm.
how academic manufacturing facilities have a role, and how centers like Moffitt balances, having a manufacturing facility in the research setting
Great.
that they have. My role here at Moffitt Cancer Center is to oversee this CGMP manufacturing group.
Mm-hmm.
This is a manufacturing group that, as I mentioned in my intro, that manufactures cellular products for phase one, phase two trials, and we recently added viral vector manufacturing capability,
Mm-hmm.
and the group is manufacturing gamma retro and lentiviral vectors to support phase one, phase two trials.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my role is to oversee this group. This group is a group of 80 members. It's a pretty big group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and this group functions sort of like early phase CDMO. But our goal is to support Moffitt research investigators primarily
Mm-hmm.
and help them to translate the cellular products, these novel technologies that comes out of Moffitt. We are the team that helps the research investigators and clinical investigators to translate such products into clinic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this is the manufacturing facility. Not many people know this. It's been around in the Moffitt Cancer Center for almost 18 years.
Oh wow.
This manufacturing group was started by Dr. Jim Muley, who is my boss here right now. And he started this group back in 2006.
Mm.
He's from Rosenberg's team. So there is a lot of legacy to this manufacturing group, and it grew over the years. And I think it's the right time. I think over the years, the space cell manufacturing, in fact, the field of cell and gene therapy, the way it grew, along with that, this manufacturing group also, grew. And all these years, this group had been supporting Moffitt Cancer Center researchers
Mm-hmm.
to translate their cellular products. In parallel to that, this group also works very closely with biotech companies that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
We have a long-standing collaboration with several cell therapy companies. Some of them are like really big companies like Kite,
Mm-hmm.
with whom we've been maintaining the relationship for almost 10 years or more than that, with
Mm-hmm.
Iovance, who got their TIL product approved. This manufacturing group, as well as Moffitt Cancer Center, it's been maintaining the collaboration for almost 15 years.
Mm.
So since 2007, this manufacturing group, it had been working with Iovance. Um, so then, how does Moffitt balance, or what's the role of this manufacturing group within the Moffitt ecosystem? To
Yes.
answer the first part of your question, and how well Moffitt balances that. Moffitt, right off the bat, I can tell you, Moffitt Cancer Center balances the innovation, translation, and clinical trial execution pretty well. And it's because of the leadership that we have here at the center for all these years. Um, in fact, right now, our CEO, Dr. Patrick Koo, he is one of the pioneers in cell therapy space.
Yes.
Um, my supervisor, my boss, Jim Muley, he's one of the pioneers in cell therapy space. So having the cell therapy expertise and also having the framework of translation, innovation, and clinical execution in place, um, all those are really well balanced because of the leadership that we have here. And as I mentioned, the manufacturing facility here, it fits really well into this ecosystem because this is the team that that translates the products
Right.
from the lab into clinic using our expertise in CMC package preparation, which is the key component of IND application that goes in front of FDA to start any phase one trial. So that's how this facility fits in the ecosystem of Moffitt Cancer Center, and how Moffitt Cancer Center balances all these pieces to align with the manufacturing capabilities that we have.
Yeah. Great. No, that's a great historical view. So thank you. Just give us a sense. You said there's 80 people that work on the manufacturing group. Is there how many clean rooms, how many programs, would you be able to handle, or do you handle, just to give us a sense of the kind of scale of the operation?
Yeah, yeah. So just again, a little bit of a history because this group has been around for quite some time. To just give you some metrics, in last 10 years, this manufacturing group supported IND submissions for 50 different IND applications.
Wow.
And so that means this group supported manufacturing for 50 different IND applications. And the expertise in manufacturing is around cell types such as STIL, alpha beta CAR T cells, gamma delta CAR T cells, dendritic cell vaccines, tumor cell vaccines, TCR-Ts, and genetically engineered Tregs.
Hmm.
That's the manufacturing expertise that we have here, and there is an extensive regulatory expertise that this group has. Um, as you can imagine, by supporting 50 different INDs, the kind of expertise this group has in interactions with FDA. With respect to our infrastructure, we have a 20,000 square feet facility. We have 10 clean rooms where all this manufacturing happens. Um, and the team that I have, it's in 8 subgroups.
Hmm.
So there is a manufacturing group, there is a viral vector manufacturing group now. There is cell manufacturing group, viral vector manufacturing group. I also have BMT, blood and marrow transplant standard of care group.
Mm.
Um, so viral vector manufacturing group as well as cell manufacturing group, those are the groups that supports manufacturing for phase 1 phase 2 trials.
Hmm.
The standard of care group that I have, that group is embedded into the Moffitt Cancer Center's BMT program. So that group processes transplants, handles standard of care products. They also handle cellular products that are manufactured elsewhere, but they come here to Moffitt Cancer Center um, to support the trials that are ongoing. And these trials utilize the cellular products that are coming from elsewhere.
Got it.
So again, to go into the metrics, this manufacturing group, including the standard of care group that I have,
Hmm.
um, supports manufacturing for 15 different INDs right now.
Mm.
So for all those INDs, the cell products are currently manufactured here.
Hmm.
But at Moffitt Cancer Center, there are around 56 cell therapy trials that are ongoing.
Wow.
So the cellular products related to all those trials are handled by my group,
Hmm.
um, by the standard of care group, which receives the cellular products from elsewhere. So
Got it.
there is a lot of cold chain logistics expertise here
Hmm.
within this group, apart from manufacturing. So those are the key groups like that are at the forefront of manufacturing or handling standard of care, but these core groups are supported by other groups. As you can imagine, there is a quality control group,
Sure.
there is a facilities and operations group, inventory management group, um, as well as IT and education group. And of course, we have a strong quality assurance and quality management group that reports into hospital quality. So overall, there are 8 groups within this manufacturing facility
Hmm.
that have different roles, as I explained.
Very cool. No, I had no idea. 56 clinical trials under the roof, and 15 of which are being manufactured for in house. That's a great. That's incredible. That makes you, producing more, running more programs than many of the big pharma players you mentioned, Kite and, and others that would have fewer programs in house. That's amazing. So great to know. You alluded to this, and I'd love to explore it a bit further. The role distinction between research, between development, translation, process development, and then clinical development or clinical manufacturing has been traditionally in biotech. They've been very siloed. Sort of you throw a program over the wall, and each group catches it and then does their bit. We know, or at least I've heard from others, that sort of siloed approach really doesn't work in cell therapy. We need to have good integration across research, across development, and I think maybe that's part of the answer as to why manufacturing expertise has been brought into the academic setting, because we know that we have developed products that are clinically very effective. I mean, you mentioned Amtagvi earlier. You mentioned TCR as well as being one of your areas of expertise. We've been following the Adaptimmune story. We know that manufacturing continues to be a challenge for cell therapy companies, despite the efficacy and safety of the products that they've brought to market. So Is that how you have structured the team? Is that true for Moffitt in the way that you guys interact as a team, where there's more collaboration across those preclinical phases?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. That's the beauty of this ecosystem that's at Moffitt Cancer Center.
Hmm.
Um, in a way, that ecosystem really helps when we forge collaborations, even with external companies, whether they are startup companies or they are big pharma. Um, and again, as you alluded to, the way it works is the close collaboration between research and then process development, um, then GMP manufacturing, which is clinical manufacturing, and clinical trial execution. These four pieces have to be aligned perfectly,
Hmm.
which doesn't happen all the time, But for any cell therapy program to be effective, um, these these pieces need to be aligned so that there is a clear transition from one stage to another stage to reach the clinical trial. And then once it enters into phase one trial, that's where the clinical expertise at Moffitt Cancer Center comes into place.
Mm.
Um, there is a huge expertise in clinical trial execution at Moffitt Cancer Center, in the form of the clinical PIs that we have here. In fact, one of the pioneer in CAR T space, Dr. Fred Locke, who led Zuma One trial for CAR T program, that eventually got approved in
Hmm.
2017, first CAR T to be approved. He is the BMT chair here, and he is the chair of advisory committee that oversees this manufacturing group. So all that expertise, in parallel to these pieces that I mentioned: research, process development, clinical manufacturing, clinical execution. Um, these are all very important for any cell therapy programs to be successful. And we at Moffitt Cancer Center feel that we are in a really good place to translate a lot of novel cell therapy technologies from lab into clinic,
Hmm.
and we are doing that constantly. In last 3 years, we translated Moffitt internal cell therapy intellectual property assets, three of them, from lab into clinic in last 3 years, and those are in clinical trials right now in phase
Mm.
one trial.
Great.
Um,
This has been a topic that I've debated actively with people on the podcast and also just out in the industry. Um, we know that um, there's a lot of competing priorities for a development program that's preclinical. You need to try, oftentimes getting into the clinic as fast as possible is one of the mandates. But you also need to obviously do so as, timely and cost effectively as you can to know if there's a signal there that means you've got something. But then also ultimately we need to make sure that the end product when it hits the clinic, meets the economic framework that we need for a successful product. So it's these kind of competing priorities around safety, efficacy, and commercial viability are often discussed. And I wonder, how do you balance those things for the programs that you're working on? How do there's a discussion, well, when do we worry about, what's the right time to worry about manufacturability or CMC? If you've got an opinion on that, I'd love to hear it. And then also if there's at some point, the last discussion I had was on an endpoints webinar, and the group that was there decided, well, pivotal is too late. We know that it needs to be pre-pivotal, but there was some debate about should it be in the kind of development stage, translation, or is PD okay, or can you wait till phase 1, 2 to really address manufacturability? I'd love to hear your thoughts on
Yeah, yeah. This is $1 million question, but
that. It is.
it's a great question, and we are all trying to address this, right? I mean, your group, you're extensively involved in looking at this issue from
Hmm.
COGS perspective, how well streamlined the process can be made using your automation technology that
Hmm.
already has. So yeah, we are all are trying to address this. Again, balancing safety, efficacy, commercial viability. These three. it's not easy. There is no straight answer to this, but and to answer to one of the question that you had, is when do we need to start worrying about all these components? I say right from preclinical stage. That's my
Right.
perspective.
Yep.
You know, you can't. There is no room to worry when you reach to phase two.
Hmm.
Things will get out of hand if
Right.
you start worrying about these things at phase two trial status.
Yeah.
So yeah, from my perspective, we should start looking at all these. We should start thinking about commercial viability right from the preclinical stage.
Yes.
When the process is being developed in the lab, it, the research, I think that's the beauty of close collaboration between process development, manufacturing team, and research investigators.
Hmm.
The research investigators, when they are working on these processes in their lab, they have to be cognizant of the issues with the scale up.
Yes.
And so the process that they're developing in the lab, they have to keep in mind it's scalable. If an experiment is done using cells that are coming from T75 flask, that doesn't mean it's going to work in the manufacturing process. So I think
Yes.
I would say it's right from the preclinical stage. And again, research investigators won't have answers to everything, right? And that's why the collaboration with the process development team, manufacturing team,
Yes.
is extremely important. On top of it, with respect to commercial viability, um, there should be a collaboration with a business development team
Yes.
or uh, innovations team within the group, right? And at
Hmm.
Moffitt Cancer Center, we are really fortunate to have a group. It's called Innovations and Entrepreneurship Group.
Hmm.
That's the group works with the research investigators to understand the product at hand so that
Yes.
they can develop the portfolio pipeline for the center.
Hmm.
So we have that component too. So the collaboration between research investigators, innovations and entrepreneurship group, process development, manufacturing groups is key. And then on top of that, the clinical component, because once you have your process ready, you have to go after particular indication, you have to go to phase one trial. That's
Hmm.
where the clinical piece comes into picture. So all these collaborations are extremely important, and we got to start looking at the commercial viability um, by checking all these boxes
Yes.
right from the preclinical stage.
Yeah. I obviously am biased on this question, but I 100% agree with you. I mean, I think the um, getting to a successful phase two and then trying to license an asset or partner an asset or spin a company out and get it funded, you need to have an answer to this question. What is your COGS profile going to look like? How many patients are you going to be able to treat with your process? What line of therapy are you targeting? It's really the commercial framework that far big pharma companies and therapeutics investors are going to want to see for
Mhm,
assets of this type. And I think over the last 3 or 4 years, we know it's been very hard since 2021 for cell therapy companies to raise money. And investors and potential big pharma partners they're not partnering assets that haven't answered this question. And
mhm. Yep,
just getting the clinical data boxes ticked, the safety and efficacy pieces only, is no longer good enough. We're seeing
yep,
lots of companies struggling to raise money who have good clinical data, but for whatever reason, it's not thought that could be a commercially viable product. Maybe the target market is too small, or the manufacturing process is too hard, or COGS is too high, or whatever. But I think it's a critical third pillar, as you said, to address preclinical. And how do you do that with investigators? Oftentimes, investigators were solely focused on the science, on the biology. That's really their remit. And one of the things that I've said often publicly is I don't think we as technology developers have done a very good job supporting investigators and people like yourself with flexible technologies that can be used in the research phase.
mhm,
They had to use bags or flasks or research scale tools because they needed that flexibility to pull a lot of levers and try and develop the best process. But then leaving them open to the risks around translation and comparability as you move through the development process. So how do you work and guide investigators, and how do you advise them that this CMC commercial viability piece is so important even at the R&D phase?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It comes down to the culture of translation that exists at the center, right? The lab research is the research which is very key to all the products that are coming into manufacturing.
Hmm.
But making sure that the research investigators have that vision, the translational vision, is very important.
Yes.
So I think that comes with the culture that exists to some extent at the centers. And again, I can say that at Moffitt Cancer Center, there is a lot of focus on translation. Because Moffitt Cancer Center's mission is to contribute to the prevention and cure of cancer
Yes.
by translating technologies from the lab into clinic, and using those technologies we would like to help patients to have a better quality of life. So I would say the translation culture is embedded in the cancer center here,
Hmm.
and that's because over the years how things evolved at the center. In fact, my supervisor, Dr. Muley, he is the associate center director of translational science. There is a translational science department at Moffitt Cancer Center that oversees this translation component. By working closely with the PIs and having this culture of, okay, your lab product at some point, if it is identified as a viable product to go into clinic, there is this translational piece that you need to think about. So you need to think about scaling up your process. You need to think about collaborating with the right stakeholders right from the beginning, so that that translation is seamless.
Hmm.
So again, at Moffitt Cancer Center, I feel fortunate to work with this group because that culture is already there. And
Yes.
as I mentioned in my background, I worked in biotech, and I wore multiple hats in small biotech. So all these groups coming together is very important, and that already exists. That framework exists here, so it makes my job easy to do process development, to do scale up, to prepare the lab products aligned with clinical manufacturing. So we start interacting with the research investigators right from the beginning, and Moffitt Cancer Center goes through the portfolio of assets. There is a committee, and then the assets that are viable and that are deemed translatable into clinic are selected and moved along. So there is this whole framework at Moffitt Cancer Center. Because of that, the research PIs interact with the groups like us from the very early on in the program. So that helps us a lot. So that's one of the things that I can comment on,
Yeah.
which is very useful, and which makes our job easy.
Makes sense. And I bet the tech transfer office and others love you guys because you're delivering them, more mature, more kind of partnerable assets. We've heard a
Mhm.
lot from tech transfer offices around the country that, it's frustrating when they, because their job is obviously to find um, partners and to, create value from the assets that are developed internally. Um, but it's been frustrating over the last 3 or 4 years that, those partners were asking questions that they didn't have answers to.
Yeah, at Moffitt Cancer Center, again, under Innovations and Entrepreneurship Office, we have a strong tech transfer focused business development group that works very closely with us in this area,
Hmm.
and with other groups too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what's the role, do you think, of technology to play in this effort? So, um, I mentioned kind of, one of the things that we at Ori focus very heavily on is trying to develop a tool that is flexible enough for researchers to be able to use. I think that's been sort of the knock against some of the first generation automation technologies was a limited flexibility. You had to sort of shoehorn your process within the capabilities of the technology versus being able to kind of use technology flexibly. So, Jason termed it in a way that Jason Bach at CTMC termed it in a way I thought was quite elegant, saying it really empowers scientists. He was speaking about the Eero platform, but it really empowers scientists to use all of their knowledge and expertise to deliver the best product or the best process, because there's lots of levers, there's lots of dials, there's lots of things they can do to try and adapt their process. How do you think about the integration of technology into that process you've described, from research to translation to process development and ultimately clinical manufacturing?
Yeah, it's extremely important. It has a significant role, and uh, you know it very well. Integration of technology into processes and improving the processes is extremely important. It's the need of the hour. Because the products that are approved right now, the cell therapy products, there is a conventional manufacturing that's applied to majority of these products,
Hmm.
and what I'm trying to say is there is a need for improving the way we are manufacturing these products, because we need to have a better handle at COGS,
Yes.
um, and also the turnaround time to manufacture these products. There is a lot of room for improvement in that space, that area too.
Yes.
Um, and how do we achieve this? It's by integrating technology, by integrating novel platforms, that will improve these processes, and uh, will help us to overcome these bottlenecks or pain points, such as COGS,
Hmm.
such as long turnaround times to release the product. So yes, there is the technology integration is extremely important. It's the need of the hour.
Yeah. And I always feel bad for when I sort of talk to folks at companies like we mentioned Iovance earlier, Adaptimmune, some of the newer approved products that, those products were in development for 10 or 15 years. I mean, they were forced to use, lab scale tools. Those are the only tools that were available. And, it's been a challenge. It's been a struggle. I think between Kite, BMS, Novartis, and others, they spent tens of billions of dollars trying to scale those processes that are built on legacy tools, and unfortunately, for the most part, unsuccessfully. So I would agree 100% with you that we have now a new generation of enabling technologies that are coming to the market, and ours being one of them, that hopefully will help this next generation of therapies reach patients at scale, because that's ultimately what all of us want. When you and your team are working hard on a preclinical program or a clinical trial, you want to see that product reach patients. Ultimately, that's the goal, and to have a big clinical impact. And so I think leveraging the next generation of tools is super important for this next generation. So I agree 100% with that point. Um, so shifting gears just a tiny bit, I'd love to get your point of view on kind of the internal pressures. I hear a lot of uh, we would say in the UK, whinging, a lot of complaining about tech transfer and comparability, and the process around that is very hard. It's very time consuming. It's very labor intensive, and we know it has to happen several times for any development process. It comes out of the R&D lab, it goes into ultimately development and manufacturing, and then when you go from clinical scale to commercial scale, it's often another tech transfer process. How do you think about that, as easing the burden of tech transfer and ultimately comparability if necessary? Because from what we've seen, tech transfer can add 2 or 3 years onto a development program, because it takes that long to go from one set of experts in one location to another set of experts in another location.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. The strategic vision is very important for, again, all of us in cell therapy programs know this. I don't need to, belabor on this. But again, the strategic vision for tech transfer is extremely important. Also, the expertise is extremely important. Um, so the both parties that are involved in tech transfer, they have to communicate
Yes.
effectively. They shouldn't it shouldn't be chaotic, um, which sometimes it turns out to be that way.
Can be. Yep. Hmm.
But yeah, again, clarity, strategic vision, and expertise, these are key components for tech transfer. um, this manufacturing group that I oversee, we do a lot of tech transfers with the companies. I mean, they have their process ready,
Hmm.
and they want to start phase one trial, or they are doing phase one trial elsewhere, and they want to transfer their technology here.
Yes.
And as I mentioned, this group, it's been around for last 15 plus years. So there is a lot of expertise in tech transfer. It doesn't come overnight. You have to develop that expertise. Once you have that expertise, you can collaborate and work and explain very clearly to your partner what are the expectations, what all we need to do together to have a smooth tech transfer. Again, smooth tech transfer, I don't think that exists, because there is always something or the other going on with the tech transfer process. But having expertise on both in both parties is extremely helpful, and also clarity and strategic vision.
Yeah. Why is it so hard? I've heard others say tech transfer is so hard because you have all that kind of tribal knowledge, that embedded expertise at the organization that you're transferring from, and it's very much people driven. And so a lot of it has to do with knowledge transfer, training, and documentation, and those components take a long time. Is it as simple as that? Is that the at its core why this can be so difficult?
Yeah, yeah. When so it's especially cell manufacturing,
Hmm.
right? The cell manufacturing process, tech transfer, it has multiple layers, like multiple layers, right? We have quality control, we have
Yes.
asset development, asset transfer, process transfer, and within the process, it's like a 14-day process, 28-day process, and day two you have to do this, day three you have to do this.
Right.
So, because of the complexity that comes with the cell manufacturing, the tech transfer is complex.
Yes.
And that's why the expertise matters. And the stakeholders who are involved in this tech transfer need to know what are all the moving pieces,
Hmm.
so that they communicate effectively and get it done uh, as smooth as possible.
Yes.
It's the complexity with the manufacturing um, that exists in cell therapy and cell therapy field
Yes.
is a reason behind this notion of tech transfer being complex, and of course it is complex.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, we have now done close to double-digit transfers onto our technology, and I think the shortest has been about 6 weeks. The longest has been about 12 weeks, which is pretty short given the when you start the optimization process. We translate a process over and the knowledge that exists on the process. These are usually early stage processes to see if we can replicate it with the technology, and that to get that right takes time. But it's shorter than the whatever 6 to 12 months that it generally takes. But one of the we haven't transferred sites other than one time. We transferred CTMC's process from Houston to Philadelphia and to do sort of parallel manufacturing in two sites. And that second set of tech transfer only took 2 weeks because essentially you transferred the protocol from one machine to another at two different places.
Mhm.
And we went ahead and ran simultaneous manufacturing. All we ran 6 batches, three at each site, and sent the output back to the academic or the analytical lab in Houston. And all six of those batches met the CQAs that were set for their phase 1/2 trial. Now, that's a proof of concept. That is not a full tech transfer. We understand that. But I think technology has a role. Back to the point we were just talking about, technology has a role to play here as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
If you're not you don't need to train so many operators, or many of the steps become automated, and so it's really just a protocol that the machine is following. It stands to reason that we should be able to shorten tech transfer time and to replicate it in multiple sites as needed, for clinical manufacturing or commercial manufacturing more quickly. And that should hopefully save time on the overall drug development timeline to get these products to market and to get them to patients. But again, there is a role for technology here, I believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
We're coming close to the end of our time together, and thanks again so much for spending this time with us. I had a couple more questions, just if you don't mind. I think the as developers are out there thinking about their development pathway, many of them are themselves spun out of academic centers that may not have capability like Moffitt has, and like you lead. Um, what should developers and technologists be thinking about when they're developing their therapies? They're probably evaluating various types of partners, maybe a academic center partner like yourselves, or a small kind of preclinical CDMO, or maybe even larger CDMOs like partners of Ori's like Charles River or others. Um, there's a whole gamut of potential opportunities for them, which is great in enhancing their flexibility. They can take their technology in lots of different places. What kind of considerations should they be thinking about? Where going an academic route or a hybrid. Maybe there's a partnership between both a commercial CDMO, maybe for later stage manufacturing, but you guys sort of are there present in the earlier phase. How do you advise developers that are thinking about partnering with you on how they should be thinking about this?
Irrespective of academic or CDMO or hybrid, I think the developers, I think they just go with the right partner and do your due diligence and make sure you first of all, the developers, before even they go to the manufacturing groups, either academic or CDMOs, even if it's in a preclinical development stage, that's fine. Then go to the right group. Like for example, at Moffitt Cancer Center, we do forge collaborations with early stage biotech companies who has their process in preclinical stage, but they
Hmm.
come to Moffitt Cancer Center, and we have three buckets of collaboration. They do their process development in collaboration or preclinical development in collaboration with the research group.
Hmm.
Moffitt has a huge cell therapy research group here. There are almost 30 to 35 investigators, both clinical and research investigators who are working in cell therapy space.
Hmm.
So they come to Moffitt Cancer Center and work in a preclinical space if they need to develop that product further. And then once the process is ready, they come to the manufacturing group to put together a plan for scale up and CMC development, and then work with the clinical group for clinical trial execution. So that kind of collaboration is really important. So think through that, right?
Yes.
When you have a process that's especially for early stage companies or to research groups who has the product in early stage,
Hmm.
think through this and make sure you go to the right group, so that if you have a research needs or preclinical needs, you have that addressed with the group with whom you are forging your collaboration.
Yes.
And following that, it has to flow into manufacturing group, to make sure that is tech transferred from the research to the manufacturing group. And then once the manufacturing group helps you with the preclinical CMC development, you have a path forward for clinical trial.
Hmm.
So at Moffitt Cancer Center, again, we are proud of the ecosystem that we have here: research, manufacturing, and clinical trial. So the developers need to make sure they have all these pieces at one place. Um, if not at one place, like, because a lot of CDMOs that are out there, they don't have the research as well as clinical component embedded in that
Yes.
facility, right?
Yes.
Um, if you're going to CDMO, make sure you know where you're going to do your research piece. You know where you're going to do your clinical trial piece. And not only that, that's for phase one trial, but what is the long term plan? Like, how are you going to approach your phase two trial? How are you going to approach your phase two manufacturing?
Yes.
And then how are you going to address your pivotal trial manufacturing? Make sure you think through all those pieces ahead of a time. There is no investment needed, when you're thinking about it,
Yes.
but you have your plan in place and reach the right partner. And these are multi-year collaborations that you
Hmm.
need to forge to
Yes.
take your product from preclinical all the way to commercial.
Yeah.
So
And you said that your team and Moffitt's real expertise runs through phase two. Do you do pivotal manufacturing or commercial manufacturing, or that will have to take place somewhere else?
So as of now, we haven't been doing pivotal and late stage manufacturing, but again, depending on the technology that we are going to work on, some of the manufacturing platforms, we can work with the collaborators to take their products through pivotal trial.
Hmm.
So we are open to that. We haven't done that yet, but we are working on few projects in that regard.
Right.
But right now, so far, we have supported phase one, phase two,
Hmm.
this particular group. But this um, we are in the works with some of the projects to support pivotal based on the platform that we are working on. So yeah, that's our capabilities right now.
Yeah.
Again, at Moffitt Cancer Center, there are plans, there are strategies that are being worked out to make sure we have manufacturing all the way from phase one to early commercial.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I think the word that jumped into my head as you were talking is kind of retaining flexibility. It's the, developing your process. You might want to come to Moffitt for development, for translation, maybe for early stage manufacturing, but you want to keep your options open. Maybe there'd be a role for someone like a Kincell or an Elevate Bio, other partners of Ori's that might be able to add expertise at a certain stage. And then, again, you're going to need at some point, if you're successful, commercial scale manufacturing. And that might be a large CDMO partner. It might be your own in-house manufacturing, but you're going to need to do probably at least two tech transfers, one from the original site where the process was discovered to a partner like yourselves, and then probably to a larger scale facility of some kind at a later stage. So two or three tech transfers at for most processes, and
Hmm.
trying to retain flexibility. So if there's some expertise out there that you want to take advantage of, that you have the ability to do that. I think a lot of the technology providers and some of the service providers try and lock you in. It's a fully integrated offering. You can only use our service provision. You can only use our technology. Some of the first generation technology companies do that. And I think that's bad. That's bad for programs, it's bad for patients, bad for the industry to reduce flexibility, to try and lock people in and reduce their options. And part of what we've been trying to do, we've launched, you probably saw our preferred partner network, and we'd love for Moffitt to become one at some point when it makes sense. But, partnering with the leading academic centers and the leading CDMOs, as well as the leading technology providers, so that, you can chop and change. You can pick from this expertise or that expertise. You can, different stages, different technologies that enhance flexibility rather than reduce it. And that kind of approach that you just outlined, I think, is perfect for those that want to retain their flexibility to ultimately deliver the end goal, which is, for all of us, again, delivering these products to patients at scale.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason, and I 100% agree with the strategy that you just mentioned. And for cell therapy programs, multiple tech transfers are inherent because when you manufacture for phase one, phase two trial, you don't want to go into a manufacturing facility that supports late stage products
Yes.
because the infrastructure is different. You
Hmm.
you have to pay more than twice than what you pay for phase one manufacturing. So yes, so multiple tech transfers are inherent to
Hmm.
cell manufacturing, because early stage, one kind of facility, late stage, another kind of facility.
Hmm.
As you said, it's a bad practice to say like, okay, in this facility you are going to do from phase one all the way to early commercial. No, there are multiple facilities
Yes.
within one ecosystem. That's great, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
inherent to cell manufacturing.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, we design technology that can live in all those environments to try and facilitate it, make it easier,
Yep,
because it's going to be
yep,
hard regardless. Let's not make it harder than it has to be.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of that, I'd love to kind of in a final minute or two that we've got. What opportunities do you see for more effective collaboration between sort of academic centers like Moffitt, small biotech companies, the CGT developers, and maybe enabling technology companies like Ori? How should we be looking forward to a way of working that builds on our learnings of the past and accelerates the future, maybe around either infrastructure sharing or technology advancement, or where do you
Yeah.
see those opportunities for collaboration?
Yeah. I mean, collaborations are extremely important. They are key because all of our goal is to address the pain points in cell manufacturing. The progress that we made in cell and gene therapy space in last 10-15 years is leaps and bounds, right?
Yes.
And I'm really excited about the future of cell and gene therapy and in cell manufacturing, and all the exciting growth and the leaps and bounds of whatever progress that we are going to achieve. can be achieved only by the collaborations, by forging collaborations between, companies and academic centers and platform based. For example, you guys work on automation.
Hmm.
You have your Ori, and so the collaborations between academic centers and biotechs and platform companies. It's extremely important. We need to keep forging those collaborations so that collectively we all address these pain points effectively and take the field forward. So we need to keep forging collaborations and keep driving this field forward. That's the only way we can tackle all the issues that we have with the manufacturing um, in cell and gene therapy space.
Absolutely, absolutely. And people ask me often, particularly investors, do you think cell therapy or gene therapy has a future? Because we've really seen some real challenging, real challenges for the industry over the last 3 or 4 years. And my response is, I think if a cell therapy, let's just take that as an example, was only incrementally positive, sort of incrementally better than an immunotherapy or a biologic or a bispecific or an ADC or whatever, um, maybe the challenges might be a rate limiter for us, when you're forward looking. But these products are transformative. These products are curative as opposed to sort of having a maintenance or multiple dosing, or even if you look at some of the latest generation, ADCs or bispecifics, they're still not curative. They oftentimes you need multiple dosing. They sort of prolong the symptom-free living, but they don't really offer curative potential. And so, I think we are in I called it the trough of despair in the Gartner, adoption curve, in the adoption of new technology. We're in the hype phase in 2021. We've crashed down to the trough of despair now. But I have a very, very high level of confidence that because this modality has such a huge impact on patients' lives, it literally goes from people about to die to people being cured. We can't ignore that. As a humanity can't ignore that. Funders can't ignore that. Regulators can't ignore that. And so I'm very, very positive about the future of the industry. We're in a challenging time right now, but innovation will see us through, and we will reach the peak. The heights that now biologics have reached. They went through a very similar cycle. I remember them being in the trough of despair, and we were all wondering, are biologics ever going to be a real thing? Are we ever going to be able to make money on them? And it feels very, very much the same to me. I wonder what your outlook is for the next kind of 5 to 10 years. Do you share a similar view?
Absolutely. I would say cell therapies are here to stay, right? Again, collectively, as I mentioned earlier, with all the collaborations that are going to happen, that happened, and that are going to happen, the community of cell and gene therapy is going to address the pain points that we are seeing right now, and the field is going to progress. As you said, right now, I think the investment markets and all that related to cell therapy, as you alluded to, yeah, it's like on the downside, but I believe it's not going to stay that way long because the power of the modality here, the cell therapy, as you alluded to, it's a curative treatment, and they're here to stay. And we see that in the field, the way the products are moving up in the lines of therapy. The products that are approved as the fourth line of therapy, now some of them are in second line of
Yes.
therapy. At
Yes.
some point, they become first line of therapy.
Hmm.
Why is this happening? Because of the potential of these therapies. So again, I don't see any reason to doubt cell therapies in the future. Um, it's just a matter of time. And again, the cell therapies are here to stay.
Yeah. You summarized in 6 words what it took me many more words to say, which is, cell therapies are here to stay, and I agree 100%, and love that outlook. I think this has been a fantastic and educational conversation for me and for our listeners. So thank you again so much for taking the time, and love to come see you in the facility down in Florida. Maybe I'll be down there in October, and would love to come say hello in person if we get a chance.
Absolutely, Jason. I look forward to hosting you, and of course, yeah, we look forward to seeing you here. We would love to show you our facility. Yeah, and it's a really pleasure talking to you.
All right, it's a date. Thanks again, Kumar. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Bye bye.